Good morning, my little chickens. David Heiner again here with Just for Farmers, the podcast that's ironically just for farmers. And Paul.
Yes, good morning.
Paul, hello.
Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, depending on what time you're listening or watching this. It's good to be back.
Mucho bueno, ¿cómo está? Got
Yeah.
him. Got him. Got him.
Very good, thanks, Davey.
Got him. After nearly 2 seasons of Just for Farmers, I've finally got him. Stumped him. Oh, little things in life, isn't it? It's the little things.
That's just because he's been on holiday to Canary Islands. He's remembered a little bit of Portuguese or Spanish or whatever it is.
Paul, welcome as always.
Brilliant.
With
Good to
your
be here.
extensive farming knowledge. And today we've got a great interview with Julie Mitchell. Both Paul and I have known Julie for quite a long time. However, when I asked Julie, how would you like to be introduced, Julie, she says, I don't like being put in a box, Dave. So there's going to be no Tupperware. There's going to be nothing with a lid on here. But Julie is the founder of the Mental Wealth Revolution. And we've talked so many times on Just for Farmers about the impact it has on the farmers, the staff, the families of farmers, and even the local community. And I know myself from sitting in pubs occasionally with groups of farmers where I live, that there's the odd one that's extrovert, lively, full of life and beans, but most of farmers I've met anyway are quite private individuals. They keep themselves to themselves. So we're going to veritably pick the brains of Julie on her awesomeness and knowledgeness and see if we can get some ways that farmers can just look after themselves a little bit better. Because you're not very good, are you? Let's be honest, you're not very good at it.
We're fine, we're fine, we're fine.
Yeah, we'll muddle on.
Yes,
make
come
men
on.
to do. During the war.
Stiff upper lip and all that jazz.
Julie, welcome to Just for Farmers. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Thank you. Well, thank you, guys. Thank you. I've been chuckling already listening to you two. I'm going to have to start listening to this podcast myself, I think. So thanks for introducing me. So my name is Julie, but I don't like being called Julie because I think my mother's telling me off.
Oh.
So I am Jules. I'm Jules to everybody who is my friend, and I think that everybody in the world is my friend. So
Welcome,
I am
Jules.
Jules.
Welcome.
So, as you said, I am the founder of the Mental Wealth Revolution, which is a really exciting new thing that we are actually launching in the UK over the next few months.
Right.
So I've been working in the industry, if you want to call it that, with regards to mental health for coming up for about 17 years now. So I am classed as an expert, but I think what I'm more of an expert in is myself and learning how I have grown, how I have developed, how I have learned not just to cope and not just to manage my mental ill health that it was, but to actually process and be with myself, and without being scared of that, without being upset, and without being putting on a front to anybody else.
What a great distinction, being okay with myself, because you're right. I've never thought or considered that before, because we are our own thoughts, aren't we? And that drives pretty much everything else that happens, how you feel emotionally, and then that affects your outcomes and your behaviors. And so, wow, that is a great distinction. I like that.
Mm-hmm. So, where did that come from, Jules? What's the background to why you are starting or leading this mental wealth revolution? What's the purpose of that?
It's a good question, Paul, and this is the most important aspect of it. We talk about mental health. If I say to you mental health, there's an association in your own mind and with the population's mind of what that actually means. What does that mean to most people when we talk about mental health? What's the association that pops into your mind?
Illness, sickness, not well, mental ill health.
What about you, David?
I would agree with that. I'm a bit deep. I would go loss of purpose.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Loss of direction, maybe.
Fear.
Okay. Fear. So both of you immediately have jumped on to the negative side of mental health immediately. But if I said to you, can you talk about physical health? Would you do the same?
That's fitness and exercise and taking care of yourself and all
And
that sort of
is there a negative association to talking about physical health?
Yes,
can be.
especially if you're built like me. Um,
But
For those
do
for those listening rather than watching, David has a certain rotundness, shall we say?
my friends call me Kung Fu Panda. Put it that way.
but it is, so the reason I've called it the mental wealth revolution is because the terminology, when mental health, has this association of brokenness
Yeah.
attached to it. There's a burden of brokenness. That's really how important this is, attached and associated to the term mental health.
Mhm.
So everybody that I have supported over the years, either through one-to-one programs, through community programs, through talking, through delivering sessions, talks, etc., those people who are stuck and who are struggling in life are the people who absolutely associate mental health with mental ill health. And when they associate mental ill health, they then have this burden of brokenness that's attached to them as a person. And therefore, what they are then looking for is they're looking for a fix. They're looking for someone or something to fix them, to sort them out, because they've got a broken, where is it? I often have my brain around, okay? They think they've got a broken brain. They think there's something wrong with them. And they want someone to help them to find out what the problem is and what they can do about it. And a lot of the time, because we're talking about people in the farming industry, that feeling of not feeling right or not feeling that there's something wrong with me is often shut down, is often just suppressed and kept underneath the surface because of shame, because of thinking that you're different to somebody else. And, I can't complain because I've got a fairly good life, or I don't want other people to know that I'm struggling or I'm suffering, because that might impact on my role. If I'm employed, then they might think that I can't do my job if I can't talk about it. So there's all of these associations to mental ill health and mental health. So that's why it's mental wealth, and it's a revolution, because I'm on a mission, guys. I'm on a mission to change these associations and these perceptions around mental health.
So how do we do that then? So if we even recognise that maybe our mental health isn't where it should be, or we're out on a tractor or we're out walking our fields and we're thinking, I should be loving this. Look at this amazing animals I'm working with, or this amazing shit. Why do I feel so flat? Why do I feel something missing? What would you say we do? What's the start point almost with that?
Yeah.
Okay, first start point is to recognise that you actually don't really know yourself. Going back to what David said, we don't get an education on the way our brain, body, mind system works. Yeah, we don't get it at school. We don't get it from our family, unless you're the daughter of Jules Mitchell.
Jules Mitchell, yeah. So hang a second, you already thrown something. What, a brain body connection? What do you mean? What's that mean?
So this, you see this thing I'm pointing at here, this neck?
Yes.
Yeah. It exists, which means that everything that you're thinking about or you think is in your head is not. It is in your whole entire system. So your brain, body, mind system is your brain and your nervous system, which are one thing, which are, connected through your vagus nerve. And then your mind, well, where is your mind?
Vegas,
Where's your
baby.
mind?
Vegas, baby.
Vegas, baby.
It's your VIP Vegas. It's like we need to know about it. People need to be aware. But where's your mind?
Well, you tend to think it's in, you point to your head, don't you? You
Yeah.
think your mind is in your brain. That's what you tend to
Yeah,
associate.
but your brain is the organ. Your brain is the follower of your thoughts. Your brain does what you tell it to do. So the first point of call is to go, okay, I perhaps need to know a little bit more about what's going on for me mechanically, what's going on in my brain, what's going on in my nervous system. Now, I'm not
Hmm.
asking you to go to university and I'm not asking you to do a college course, but what I will tell you is that the brain itself is a survival organ. All it's interested in is getting you through the day and getting you alive when you wake up the next morning. So, and it's programmed and it will follow your lead. So if you are worrying and you are ruminating and you are thinking about things that could go wrong, or you're worrying about what other people might think of you, if you start to tell them that you're struggling, then those thoughts themselves are feeding that negativity in your brain, because we have a negativity bias. Everybody does. If we didn't, we wouldn't be here today. We wouldn't be alive. We have to look for the negatives first. But guess what? We live in the 21st century and we have constant streams of data and information coming at us every single second of every single
True.
day.
True.
Do you know
Yeah.
we have 11 million bits of data streaming into that brain body mind system every single second of the day?
Every second, 11 million bits of data.
Yeah.
That feels a bit exhausting.
It's little wonder that so many people are using the word overwhelm now.
Yeah.
That's it. We are, because we are overwhelmed. We are burnt out. We are, because our system can't manage it. It can't cope with it. So what happens is your brain and your nervous system is an energy saving device. It will go, okay, we need to just concentrate on the most important things, right? To keep you alive. So it can't process that 11 million bits of data. So it takes it down and it goes, what are the things that I feel are the most important? Now, it's not what your brain feels, it's what you feel. Now, if you are worrying and if you are ruminating and if you are constantly sort of just trying to push it away, even though you're trying to push it away, you're putting focus on the thing that you're pushing away. The more you do that, the more you're training your brain to notice that that's important to you.
Explain that again, because
Yeah.
that was quite profound what you
Yeah.
just said.
Yeah.
So the more you're thinking about not wanting to feel a particular way, the more your brain is going to make you feel that way. Is that almost
Yeah.
what you were saying?
Yeah. So
Makes us aware.
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah. So awareness is a massive part of I do something called the neurosculpting process, where we actually use the neuroplasticity of the brain. I always have this little piece of, I don't know if you can see, it's a little piece of blue tack. It's pink because, you know, I'm a girl. And what can I do with that blue tack? I can mold it, I can form it, I can sculpt it, I can change the shape of it. Yeah. And because of that, that's exactly how our brain is. That's what neuroplasticity is. It's the ability for our brain and our nervous system to form new neural pathways with repetition. So going back to that I've just mentioned, that your brain is the follower, you are the leader. The more you think about and the more you try and stop yourself thinking about things that are causing you distress, the more your brain thinks that that's what's important to you. And therefore, your brain will scan your world like Google, okay, and actually look for things that fit into that pattern and go, okay, yeah, so this is important to you, so I'm going to show you more of it.
So is that where things like panic attacks and anxiety attacks come
Yes.
from? Is that the thing that we're frightened of, we see even more because the brain's scanning for the thing that we're frightened
Completely.
of.
That's exactly what is
So
happening.
if we're feeling lonely on a farm and we're
Yes.
feeling, you know, we're not with people, are we going to notice that more, I suppose, is what I'm
Absolutely.
saying?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it becomes, in psychology they call it top of mind. It becomes the top of mind thing that your brain and your mind is going to focus on. And this shift then, so the mental wealth revolution is about shifting, it's about spinning it around, you know, doing a 180-degree turn and looking at it a different way. So what I would say is, in that example there, if you're noticing that you're feeling lonely, if you're noticing that that's just become part of your thought pattern and your emotional landscape, then start asking yourself some different questions.
Yeah.
What sort of things could we ask ourselves? If I'm driving a tractor right now, listening to this, and I'm going up and down a field, and I'm thinking, I'm not sure this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. I want to
Yeah,
be with other people. I'm feeling lost and a bit
yeah.
lonely. What could I do to start to
And
change that?
and just before Jules answers that, Jules, I was going to say, I was going
Jules,
to
you
say
want to say
Julie
Julie,
then.
didn't you?
I was going to
Yeah,
say
I
Julie, and
know.
halfway through Julie, I went, no, it's Jules. So it's Jules. So Jules. Before you answer that great question, I, something sort of just popped into my head because when I do talk to farmers, which isn't anywhere near as much as Paul and yourself do, but you said that a lot of it is around that sort of shame, the guilt of how they're thinking, which makes sense based on what you've just said because it's compounded. The more they think about it, the worse they feel. The more they feel, the less likely they are to do positive behaviours. The less likely they are to do positive behaviours, the worse they think, the way they feel, and it can be a negative cycle.
It is a
I also
cycle.
I also see that they sometimes shrug their shoulders and go, "Well, that's just the way it is." And the other one is that I don't know what to do about this. I don't know how. So what you are, I'm sure, awesomely about to give them now is a how. So if you're listening to this or watching this, if you are aware of perhaps not having thoughts or feelings that are serving you, if you're having thoughts and feelings that are perhaps getting in the way a little bit, please listen to what's coming up in the rest of this section.
Mhm.
So a long narrative there, Julie, to say, so what can they do, as Paul said?
How do
Okay,
we stop this? Yeah, how do we? And I
how
know,
do we?
and I'm sure there isn't a simple,
There's
two-word
not a
answer
one
you can
size
give
fits
us.
all.
No,
There
no.
isn't a one size fits all, and I think everyone needs to understand that.
Mm.
There's no prescription that you can give to somebody to say this is what you need. Unfortunately, that's what's happening in the
Yeah,
medicalized model of
yeah,
anxiety, depression, overwhelm, burnout, PTSD, trauma, etc. That is what's happening, and that's the problem. But we won't go there at the moment. So what we want to do is there's two things I'm going to suggest. The first thing is I'm going to say, get out of your head.
How do
Just
we do
get
that?
out of your head. And everyone says, I just don't know how to get out of my head. Okay. You don't feel you can get out of your head because you have up to 80,000 thoughts every single day. And 95% of those thoughts are exactly the same thoughts that you had the day before, and they go on a repeat loop. And 80% of your thoughts are negatively loaded. So, we're sort of doomed, aren't we, before we even start. So to get out of your head, I teach something called presentism.
yeah,
And presentism is where you move and shift away from a thought and take your focus to your body. So if you're feeling lonely, if there's thoughts that are causing that, and that's causing that feeling. And the what comes first, the thought or the feeling, it's like the chicken or the egg. Yeah, it's a very sort of controversial subject.
Mm.
But to move, what we do is we go, okay, so how does that thought of I am lonely and I'm probably in the wrong job and I'm not sure if I'm supposed to be here and I don't know if I want to do this for the rest of my life, but I don't know what else I can do because this is the only thing I've ever trained in or the only thing I know what
yeah,
to do.
yeah.
What do? You go, okay, that, now this sounds a little bit woo-woo, but it's not, okay. Where is it in my body? Where can I feel that?
That feeling. So that'll be what, just a tension or a
Yeah. So
okay.
go to, when you ask that question of yourself, ask it out loud. Asking questions of yourself out loud is really important for many reasons. Psychological distance is one, because you're putting some space between the thought, the feeling, the state, and the actual response that you have to it. But again, neuroscience has proved that when you are speaking something, you're using that vagus nerve, that thing that I talked about that connects all of the systems. You're using it and it helps to soothe you in the process. So just the actual process of talking it out loud to yourself helps. So narrate it out loud, do it in second person conversation if you need to. Oh, okay, Jules, you are noticing that you are feeling this horrible feeling again of
So,
loneliness, and I don't
so,
know what.
so could it be, oh yeah, I've got backache, or
Yeah,
my neck feels stiff, or I've got a bit of a headache, or
any situation
or my gut
whatsoever.
feels a bit, tummy feels a bit upset, or my bowels don't feel quite right, or whatever else it might be. You're
Yeah,
saying we focus
yeah,
it into the body.
yeah.
That's
Take it to the
interesting.
body. So go to the
Just take it
first.
down another level there, Dave.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
take it another level.
Yeah. But take it to the body is, I always think of the not the Sopranos. What was before the Sopranos, where there was
God,
the
the Godfather.
horse's head, the Godfather, and
Yeah.
it was like I was thinking, take it to the body, take it. Anyway, that's me just being a magpie and going off on some tangent. Um, you can
It's
see
gone
why
very surreal very quickly.
me and Paul get on really well, by the way. We're quite similar there. So taking it to the body is go to the first place that comes to your
Yeah.
attention.
Okay.
Yeah. So it could be that you think it might be tension in your shoulders or something in your stomach, but actually it might take you somewhere else entirely.
Yeah.
So
And then,
go
and then when
to
you've
that
done that,
place.
what do you do then? What we've
Okay.
done? What do you do then?
So when you go there, go to that part of your body and be with it. Just feel into it. Has it got a sensation? Does it feel tight and constricting? Does it feel tingly? Does it feel painful? What type of pain is it? Is it a searing pain, or is it a numb sort of dull pain? And you start to investigate, you start to become the detective of how this is impacting on your physical body.
That takes
And
courage.
oh God, you know what, you think it does, but I promise you that if you try this, this is why I'm so passionate about this, because I have had people that have been on psychotic medication for 30 years who are scared as hell of feeling anything, because
Oh gosh, yeah, of course. Yeah.
a feeling is going to cause them to just lose control. What do we all want in life? We want to feel in control.
Mind and
So
medication numbs them and yeah.
absolutely.
Okay.
And that's the paradox of that, isn't it? But when people say, I'm scared of doing that, because well, why are they scared? They're scared because they think if they go into it, it's going to open up a can of worms and everything's going to come all coming out, and I'm just going to just go crazy and I'm just not going to be able to cope. But this is the thing with presentism. When you do actually allow yourself to be with yourself and to be with those sensations, to investigate them, there's a whole process that I can share at another time. But when you do that, suddenly that thought that's attached to that feeling goes, thank you.
Well, so you're saying that and we're only at step one here, and I can
Yeah,
sense there's a lot more to talk about with this. And I want to
yeah,
get some other tips from you as to what our farmers can do to
yeah,
maybe combat this loneliness. Because we're only focusing on loneliness, and there's lots of other reasons
Yeah.
why we can feel stressed and worried. But you're saying it's this going into the feeling rather than walking away from it, is what
you
you're
got
saying.
it. Yeah,
Embrace it rather than
yeah,
walk away from it, and that is a revolution. Because most of what I've ever heard is, "I want the feelings to go away, please. Take the feelings away."
that's
And what
it.
you're actually saying is go into them by the sound of things.
So I'll just give you a little metaphor or analogy really quickly. If you've been a parent of a young child, or an aunt or an uncle or whatever, if a 2-year-old comes to you in a little bit of I need you, okay, and you're in the middle of something, maybe you've been on the phone to get through to this company, and you've been 50th in the queue and suddenly you're second, and it's like I'm nearly there. And this child comes in and needs your attention. What might you do? You might go, I'll be there in a minute. Okay, I promise you, I'll be there in a minute. If you can just go over. And of course, if that minute gets extended, and of course a 2-year-old doesn't understand a minute anyway, eventually if you ignore that child, what will that child do?
It'll have a EG screamy blue fit.
Absolutely. Okay.
And internalize that stress as normal.
Yeah, absolutely. But the thing that
Wow.
I want to get from this little analogy is that child will end up having a full-blown wobble. You will then have to spend probably 20 minutes of your time helping that child to calm down and sort out what it was. And actually, all it probably was is that, something rolled under the sofa and they wanted you to get it. But it
Yeah.
ended up that you didn't go and you didn't fulfill their need in that moment. Anything in the negative side of mental health with regards to anxiety, depression, PTSD, loneliness, any of those things, the more we ignore them, the louder they will get. And when I
Pause there,
say
because
ignore,
that's really powerful. I
yeah,
think just the more we ignore them, the more powerful it gets. And I think, as somebody who works in the industry every single day, I know how much, particularly the males in the industry, and that may be slightly cliched, but I think certainly in my experience, it's true.
yeah,
There is a sort of we gather together, and I want to ask you about some tools maybe that we can use, but we often gather together as farmers, and what we'll talk about is grass and livestock and machinery and how they're doing, and we won't talk about any of this. So
yeah.
how do we start talking about some of this stuff, Jules? What do you suggest in terms of techniques for just talking to somebody about how we're feeling?
Yeah, because farmers don't like talking
No,
about soft skill stuff, do
no.
they? So how can they have the confidence to chat
No.
with their neighbour about this?
Okay. I'm going to give you an absolute gem of a tool within the Neurosculpting Toolkit. It'll help
Okay.
you to do some emotional processing, and it's called the walk and talk. Now, the buddy you've got sitting next to you there knows very well what the walk and talk is because me and Paul are walk and talk buddies.
Hmm.
So, what we do with a walk and talk is all you need is one person. You don't need a whole team of people, you don't need a whole gang of friends, you just need one person. And that one person is a person that you can send a message to every day if you can, to just offload and just tell them. So you can start off by telling them about your day, or you can do it while you can even do it while you're working. If you're in the tractor and you've got hands free and all the rest of it, you could do a voice note message. And that's the beauty of this. It's using the technology that we've got. Voice notes are an absolute beautiful thing in my world. I use them all the time. I use them for myself as well. I voice note out my own feelings, my own thoughts to help me process and to help me put things together. And all you do is you literally just send a voice note to that person to say, this is what's happening for me today. This is what's happening. This is how I'm feeling. I'm feeling a bit, I'm feeling a bit crap today, and the weather's not helping. And you can just go off as though, you're just having a normal conversation, but you're just voice noting it. And then what happens is the person that you send it to listens to that message and then they will send a voice note recording back to you. So you're not having a direct conversation. There's a space and there's a gap between you sharing how you're feeling and what's going on for you and how the person who receives your message comes back to you with their response.
And there's a
That's
huge positive in what you're saying, though, isn't it? Because I often say to business leaders when I'm doing my stress workshop that you can't afford the luxury of a negative thought. And but what you're telling us is wonderful because if we can take control of our thoughts and feel better about ourselves, start talking, what we can actually do then is prevent rather than manage.
That's it. That's it. And that's what my neurosculpting process and that's what the mental wealth revolution is all about. It's
Yeah.
about proactivity. It's not about managing, it's not about coping, it's not about dealing. It's about being with and allowing your body to work in the way that it was designed to do. Every emotion that you feel, how long does it stay in your body for? Because it is a body reaction, okay? It happens in your body. How long does it stay in your body for?
A day?
I'd go forever. I don't know.
Okay, again, how long's a piece of string?
However long you decide to leave it there.
Ah, right, okay. It will stay in your body for however long it is unprocessed.
Which is
Ooh.
why I guess, and we've only got a few minutes left now, but why we talk about childhood trauma being
Yeah.
still there as
Yeah.
adults, don't we? We talk a lot about things that
Yeah.
we experience in our younger days. Is that because we haven't processed any of that
Yeah.
information often,
Totally.
and
Yeah.
then it rears its head as an adult in
Yeah.
often and again, going back to what you said about the brain, so the brain sees a situation in adulthood that
Yeah.
reminds it of a
Yeah.
situation in childhood that's not being processed, and therefore tries to protect you.
Yeah, it's pattern
That would be-
recognition, and it has to hold on to it. And that's so those 11 million bits, 11 million bits of data that are coming in. If there's anything in there that's a sense, a smell, a sight, a sound that is the same as a traumatic experience that you had at whatever age you were, it will trigger that emotional response and that bodily response, which of course then causes a
So
thought
just to sort of
response.
bring things to a close, Jules, because
Yeah.
there's so much more I know we could talk
Oh,
about.
we need another one, don't
Another
we?
one, definitely
We
another
need
one of these.
another one.
But in terms of, I'm just thinking of that particular instance. So bringing it back to loneliness, which we know is a
Yeah.
major issue for
Yeah.
farming. There is even a situation where I think what you're saying is that there might have been a loneliness as a child. There might have been a time when you were excluded from your friends at school, and suddenly
Absolutely.
that's not being processed, and it starts
Yeah.
to remind you of that as an adult.
So when you do the walk and talk, let me just
Mhm.
bring that together. When you do this walk and talk and you do talk stuff out, what will happen is because you're talking it out, you are processing it at
Yes.
that time. All right. You're talking it, you're thinking, you're feeling it. And what will happen is you will recognize stuff yourself. You'll go, oh, because you know what? That reminds me of this that happened when I was 7, and and I was excluded, and no one sort of included me in the game, and I felt really ashamed, and you can talk all that out. That processing will really help. Now, then, if you then lean into that, into your body and allow yourself to feel it, you will then tap into what happens officially, what should happen with your emotions. And those things that should, on the shoulds, what could happen is that you could process it in 90 seconds, because that's how long an emotion stays in your body if it is processed.
Well, so it's
Wow.
it's there forever if it's not processed.
Yeah.
But if we do be brave enough,
Yes.
farmers out there,
Yes.
to face into some of this or
Yeah.
lean into it, I think is the language that you use.
Yeah.
We can process some of these feelings in 90 seconds. That's
Yeah.
an awesome place
Great.
to finish. So
And
what's the one thing?
final, let me just, I
Yeah.
know I'm just butting in, but I wanted to just give this final bit because it's so important, especially with loneliness. When you have somebody you know is listening to what you have to say, and they will come back to you without judgment, without any sort of solution, it's just, I've listened to you, I hear you, I understand that resonates with me. You've been seen, you've been heard, and you've been felt.
Fantastic. So
Wonderful.
it's time for farmers to start talking about other things other than just grass, livestock, and machinery,
And be okay
Absolutely.
with themselves.
and to be okay with themselves and feeling those feelings that you
Yeah.
talked about.
Yeah.
Wow.
So Julie, how can people get hold of you?
Well, they can get hold of me. Everything is going through a complete new, we are rebranding as the Mental Wealth Revolution at the moment. So there's no website that you can find. So the best way is to either find me on LinkedIn under Jules Mitchell, all right?
That's
Or
not Jews.
Not Jules,
not
Not
Jules,
Julie.
not Jules,
Jules.
no.
Jules Mitchell.
Not the
Yeah?
Michael McIntyre sketch either. But email is probably the best way. So if you want to share my email on the show notes or whatever, that would probably be the best idea.
Yep, say it now, though. Quickly say it now.
I will say it now. Jules, Jules, at bighappinesscic.com.
George, you're a superstar. Thank you for your generosity of time, knowledge, expertise, and just all-round awesomeness. I can see why you don't want to be put in a box. Leaving comment, Paul?
Absolutely. Just all I would say is, I know Jules really well, and we've talked about maybe 1% of what Jules could help us with. So I'm sure we'll get her back for a little bit more. But take the advice, start talking.
We'll see you again soon.
Cheers, everybody.
Now we're going to have a really short piece from James, the Body Fix coach. Something that'll help your well-being. But remember, it's advisable to speak to your doctor before you start any significant exercise regime. We're with James Bacon again from the Body Six Coach Movement is Medicine. James is going to give us an exercise today that he calls one of the best there is, called the knee or
kneeling or standing hip flexor stretch.
Kneeling or standing hip flex stretch. So James, what's the benefits of this?
So the kneeling or standing hip flexor stretch is designed to stretch out your hip flexors.
Right.
So if we are sat down during the day, we're driving, we're sat down watching TV or anything where it just involves sitting down, our hip flexors, which are starting just next to our belly buttons, they're running past our hips down towards the knees.
Right.
So if you can imagine you're sat down, these muscles are shortening. And if we don't stretch them back out to their optimal length, all sorts of weird things can start happening to the body. Pelvises can start to tip forwards, which can cause lower back pain. We can start to get pain in our knees, in our ankles, all sorts going on. So this stretch I would recommend doing every day.
Okay, now I see you've got a folded up towel on the floor.
I have got a folded up towel. We'll start with the kneeling variation. I've just got the towel. Just if you've got a little bit of knee pain, just put something comfortable underneath your knees. Cushions, towels, etc. If you feel okay, just find something that's a little bit comfortable, not too hard of a surface. So for this one, I was going to show you from a side angle. I want you to think about just taking a kneeling position on one side. Imagine you're proposing to somebody, something like that, right? We're going to take a kneel down. So my knee is underneath my hip. On the front leg, my ankle or my heel is underneath the knee.
So the way I'm looking at this is that you're kneeling on your right knee on the towel, the front of your thigh is very straight,
yeah,
and then your left leg is up in a 90-degree angle as well.
That's it. Back leg, I can either have my toes tucked under, or I can have the foot trailing behind me. Doesn't really matter, you might just feel a little bit of a different stretch in the front of the leg, the thigh muscles. From here, again, think about stacking the chest nice and tall, the spine nice and tall. All you want to do to engage this stretch, think about tucking your tailbone underneath. Okay, so if I tuck my tailbone underneath, or I squeeze my butt cheek that's behind me, I will immediately feel a stretch somewhere down the front of my leg. So it may be in the middle of the thigh, it may be down towards the knee, or it may be a little bit higher up into the hip. I'm going to hold this stretch, ideally, for 30 seconds, up to 2 minutes. You can increase the stretch by coming back out of it, taking a deep breath in, and then going back into the stretch. After about a minute, you will find the muscles start to relax and lengthen, and that's where we need to be to get them longer again. If you haven't got a lot of time during the day, maybe just do 15 to 20 second stretch. Then you're going to repeat it on the other side. I'm going to show you the standing variation now, for those that can't get down onto the floor. All you need to do, grab onto a wall. You're going to take one big step back behind you with either leg. So immediately, I'm in hip extension. My leg is behind me, so my hip is extended. Then all you need to do here, you can carry on holding onto the wall.
Right, let's just explain. So the left leg is about 8 inches from the wall.
If you think
standing facing the wall.
If you think about starting with both legs underneath your hips,
okay,
hip width apart, grab onto your wall,
yeah,
take one step back with either leg.
So your right leg has gone back.
My right leg has gone back, I'm now in hip extension. Then all I've got to do here is think about doing exactly what I did on the floor, tucking the tailbone under. Immediately I've got a nice stretch to the top of the hip.
So back straight.
Back straight, all I'm doing is squeezing my butt or tucking my tailbone under, and I've got a nice stretch in my hip, and I can hold that for 15, 20 seconds, bring it back, and then I can change to the other leg. Big step back, squeeze the butt, and you've got a stretch in the hip. You may find that one side is tighter than the other, so I suggest working on the side where you feel like you've got the most pain.
Wonderful. And would you suggest after they've loosened it off that they don't then sit down, or perhaps go a little walk?
I think it's a necessary evil sometimes that we just have to sit down, so just doing this stretch throughout the day is going to make a lot of difference to your body and the pain that you feel.
Wonderful. Thank you very much indeed, James. Hi and welcome to another drill down. I'm still with Paul. He just won't go away. Paul's that kind of lovely friend. He's always there when you need him. He's always there when you don't need. In fact, he's just always there.
Glad to be here, Mr. Heiner.
I was best man at a wedding, and the groom said that about me in front of 200 people once. Charming. Great stuff. Today we're going to have a drill down on the subject of holidays. Because Paul works with farmers in a business capacity. I only ever meet farmers socially, either at church or in the pub. And one of the things they've always had a go at me about is holidays. We can't take a holiday. We can't leave the farm. It's 24/7, 365. So Paul and I just thought we'd go a little bit freestyle. We totally accept that we do not walk in your shoes. So some of these ideas may not or will not work. However, what if one of them would, could, or does? So Paul, what's your experience of working with farmers when it comes to them taking much needed and well-deserved holidays?
Well, the obvious and the immediate answer to that, Dave, is they don't.
Yeah.
So frequently, depending on what type of farming you're in, so we are making a bit of a generalisation here, often farmers say they do not take holidays, or what does happen is that maybe the partner goes away with the children and we just miss out massively. And then the reason they give, which is often very justified, is we just haven't got the time. There's always something going on, so we don't take holidays. Now, we know the reason that the minimum legal requirement of 4 weeks holiday a year given by the government is it's recognised that for recuperation and health and well-being, we need to take holiday.
And that's probably based upon someone who's working 40 hours a week sat behind a desk.
Very possible, Dave. Whereas we're sort of working 80, 100 hours a week, particularly at harvest time, we might be working through the night, hardly taking a break. So why do you think farmers don't take holiday? I'll give you some thoughts on it, but why do you think maybe that a farmer might not think they can take some time off the farm?
I'm going to make some assumptions. Please don't shoot me, but my assumptions might be it partly could be because, well, my dad never had holidays and no other farmer I know has holidays, therefore it's impossible, rather than looking at the possibility thinking of how can we have a holiday. Also, maybe they don't trust the people they've hired and trained enough to run the farm in their absence.
Ooh, two really juicy answers there, Dave.
Open up a can of worms.
Absolutely.
Right?
Let's open up that can. And I think the first one you talked about is that others don't, so I shouldn't. And I think that's a very true. I encounter that when I talk to farmers. There's almost a feeling of, if I'm off, I'm not working as hard as everybody else,
Yeah.
and therefore I'm some sort of half-baked part-time farmer.
Presentism.
So there's a little bit of peer pressure, I would say.
Yeah.
Sometimes that's correct. And then what was the second one you said? That was a good one as well.
The second one was about they haven't trained or trust their team.
Yeah. Come on, those of us who are listening in here, we might be going, yeah. And then there might be reasons why I can't trust. So let's flip both of those and think about, well, how could we take holidays?
Yeah.
Let's begin with the trust one. So maybe if we spent a bit more time training our team, employing people who we clearly could identify and prove to us they can run the farm. We're not talking about 6 months here. We might be talking about a couple of weeks. Set the thing up, put the dates in the diary, get plenty of advance notice, plan for your holiday. I'm sure if you're a good employer out there, you will be telling other people to get their holiday booked in, but you don't put your holiday in the diary. Your holiday should go in first before somebody else's. And then you can plan well in advance to make sure there'll be enough cover and people there to do the things that you need to do. And yes, we need to trust that the farm's not going to burn down when we're not there. You can check in, you can make phone calls, but the staff don't really want you to do that. They'll often want you to go away and leave them to it. It's actually a great way sometimes, of allowing people to rise to the top. People will often step up when you're away and prove they can do more than perhaps you thought. But you've got to give them the space to do so.
And if you do struggle to switch off, if you do have a weekend or a week or a fortnight away, then again, ask yourself, if you were growing up on a farm and your boss was constantly checking in on you whilst they were on holiday, how would that make you feel? Most young farm labourers are desperate for more responsibility.
Yeah.
And at the risk of sounding a bit weird here, if you don't trust them, Whose fault's that?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's because we haven't developed them enough, we haven't trained them enough. So it's worth investing the time to get people trained up. And then there's a mindset here, isn't there, about, again, going back to I'm being a lazy person if I'm taking some time off because my farming colleagues aren't. There's sometimes a bit of a badge of honour in agriculture in terms of how many hours I've worked, whereas actually you can't take a badge of honour to the graveyard. So it's about your health and well-being and recharging yourself. Will you be a better person, a better leader, even a better colleague if we just take a little bit of time away? So how can we do that? Let's think innovatively. If you're worried, maybe you haven't got people on your farm that are capable or qualified enough to look after the farm in your absence. I bet you know somebody. I bet you know another farmer, could be locally, regionally, that could act as a mentor, could check in for you whilst you're away. There's some out of the box thinking, and you could do the same for them. Perhaps be somebody that was available just on the end of the phone if one of your staff had a problem. Rather than ringing you whilst you're lying on the beach in Greece, they ring the farmer down the road.
Paul, you do recruitment for farms, don't you?
We did.
Have you thought of a little niche called, holiday farmers?
Well,
So,
yeah.
people eminently skilled and qualified and experienced enough to go and run a farm in a farmer's absence for a few weeks. Not just in holidays. If the farmer gets ill,
Yeah.
or who's gonna plough the fields?
But there are, excuse me, that's an interesting concept because there are part-time people out there. But actually, wasn't that a way of, wait a minute, everyone's making money there. So you actually pay somebody to look after your farm,
Yeah.
but they get something out of that as well. It could be an opportunity for them to get some experience. Or So it's about, isn't it, thinking outside the box a little bit. But I think our message here is holidays are essential. And when we talk about holidays, it doesn't have to be a 6-week break. Oh, and the other thing about holidays, you listening, my lovely listeners.
You've got him started.
Oh yes, I'm on my soapbox now. Our lovely listeners, how many of us take a holiday? Yeah, I'm going to go down to Devon, or I'm going to go to Australia and New Zealand, and I'm going to look at some farms. I'll spend some time looking at farms.
Right.
Come on, we've all done that, and we can't help ourselves when we're driving through a different county. Oh, let's have a little look at that, or I'll go and speak to somebody. Do you know, sometimes, and I know we love it, so that's why we're interested to do so, but maybe a holiday should be a holiday. Maybe it should be a clean break.
Yeah.
That's when maybe some of your best ideas will come to you, when your brain has the time to relax a little bit. The next stage for your farm, the discussions that you need to have with the team, all of those might come when you're just lying on a beach, sitting in a pub with a glass of beer, walking up a mountain. That's when most creativity can come for your business.
One day there'll be a holiday where you can sit on a beach on the top of a mountain with a pint of beer. That would be my ideal holiday break.
Utopia.
And again, one simple little thing. I mean, and I'm sure people will go, oh yeah, we could do that. Well, yeah, we do it in other ways. You work collaboratively and cooperatively with other local farms and farmers. One of you have got a combine, one of you have got 3 JCBs, and you work with each other collaboratively. Easy for me to say. You work together really well. And so what if you did the same for holidays? What if there were 3 local farms like yourself, and so 3 of you get together and say, right, in the month of August, or it might not be August, any month whatsoever, a slack month maybe, we take it in turns, and for 7 to 10 days, 2 farmers run 3 farms, giving each of you a well-deserved break.
Exactly. Yeah, I think that's, as we were talking about before, that's that idea of collaborating with somebody else to oversee. And it isn't necessarily for them to be checking in. It's for the staff to call.
Yeah.
If there's a problem, and it doesn't have to be you.
Ghostbusters.
And I can feel fun. Ooh, that's a bit scary.
Yeah.
Then we've got to learn to maybe just take the hands off of control and trust that other people will look after our businesses. I can't think in the 10 years I've been around the agricultural sector, I can think of an example of where a farmer's burnt down when someone's been on holiday. Because actually most people step up.
You're going to get calls.
I probably am, aren't I?
From farmers owning.
I left Sid in charge and my farm burnt down.
With the smell of charred wood behind them.
All the animals got out, Yeah, exactly. But in reality, I think we can catastrophize and think it's going to be a disaster. What I'm saying is, anecdotally, I don't think it is, but it's sometimes just our fear of not being in control and making sure that everything's perfect. And we understand there's financial pressures and we want to make sure we're keeping control. It's all about planning ahead. getting ahead and putting the dates in the diary. Go and take a holiday.
And just to reinforce Paul's point earlier about it's not a badge of honour, is a little metaphor to end the day. Think about sadly, any funerals you've attended, and at the wake, friends, family, members of the community in their work life, and get up to say a few words. Never once will you have heard someone said, good old Trevor, he worked 115 hours last week. Nobody will ever say that. They'll talk about who you were as a person and the difference you made in their lives. So do the right thing, guys and ladies, and look after yourselves properly, please. That's it for another drill down. Any last word, Paul?
Perfect. I think you summed it up beautifully.
Sweet chickens. See you on another one. Cheers.